Welcome to the Marketing Stir podcast by Stirista, probably the most entertaining marketing podcast you're going to put in your ears. I'm Jared Walls, associate producer and Stirista's creative copy manager. The goal of this podcast is to chat with industry leaders to get their take on the current challenges in the market, but also have a little fun along the way. In this episode, Vincent and Ajay catch up with Tom Stein, Chairman and Chief Client Officer at Stein IAS. He explains how his role is about advancing the company's presence in the world, and he offers up a list of their impressive clientele. He also goes into detail about how he introduced the entrepreneurial spirit into his family. Ajay takes one for the tennis team, and Vincent is worried about sneezing. Give it a listen.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's me, Vincent Petrofessa. That must mean one thing and one thing only. It is another episode of your favorite marketing podcast, The Marketing Stir. It is great to be here. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for the continued listenership, if that's even a word. I just made it up, even if it's not. We appreciate it so much. The Marketing Stir brought to you by Stirista. You know Stirista, we are an identity marketing company. We have our own B2B data, our own B2C data. We help customers market to that data to get you new customers. Send us your first party data. If it's fragmented, we will fill in those gaps. We also have our own DSP Adster if you wanted to target the individuals in the programmatic space, display, OTT. We can help. Enough about that. That pays the bills. It doesn't. I always like talking about Stirista on this podcast here. Speaking of Stirista, the man himself, he is Stirista. Ladies and gentlemen, my co-host, the founder of Stirista, Mr. Ajay Gupta. What's going on, Ajay?
Hey, Vincent. Actually, I had a little bit of a rough last night.
What?
Yeah. I twisted my ankle to the shape of a little watermelon. But that's the bad news. The good news is I don't think the bone is broken or anything. So
was this you were playing tennis, I hope?
Yeah. I was playing tennis, and I wish it was like a great shot or something, and I still hit a winner. But unfortunately, it was one of those silly shots, and just landed a little funny. But I'm feeling better.
Well, look, hey, when you get to, that's why I asked what it was. When you get to my age, AJ, I could sneeze and something could happen. I once fell asleep on my way to a trade show for 46 minutes to San Francisco awkwardly. I had to go to physical therapy for 6 weeks. That is an unfortunate true story. It is, but well, good. You're here with us. You're in good spirits, and I'm glad you're in good spirits because I am very excited about this next guest. Why? Because B2B marketing, you cannot say B2B marketing, you cannot say B2B marketing agency without mentioning this man. I had met him many years ago on the DMA trail, if you will. Remember the DMA, those amazing conferences? Those were so much fun. I miss those dearly. And recently we bumped into each other as we were both speakers separately at the B2B Ignite conference. Would have been in person, would have been great to see him. But ladies and gentlemen, I'm very excited to have him join us. He is the chairman and chief client officer of Stein IAS, multiple award winner. If I mention the amount of awards that this agency has won, it would be the whole podcast. And, maybe some of you would like that, but it would not make for good content because we'll just be talking about all the awards. I want to get into the nitty gritty. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome from Stein IAS, Tom Stein. What's going on, Tom?
Hey, Vincent. Thank you so much for the intro, and I'm delighted to be here and to have this conversation with you. And AJ, I'm delighted to have the conversation with you as well. Even though I'm sorry to hear about your tennis injury, and I hope it's not too bad.
Because we need you. We need you, AJ. The AJ plays on a tennis league. It's a Stirista league as well. There are multiple award winners there, not quite as many awards as the Stein IAS agency. Most recently, I'll name one, Tom. I don't want to embarrass you with all the awards here, but I will name the most recent ANA's 2020 B2B Agency of the Year. I think you won that just about every year. You're like the Daily Show, the old Daily Show of B2B agencies. That's,
Well, I have
comes
to
to
tell you,
mind.
Vincent, that's actually not the latest. I know we're not supposed to talk about take too much time from this to talk about awards, but
We could. I
no,
love
no,
it.
no, 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 no. It's not that interesting, other than to me. Not even my kids are interested in that. But we actually just won the Drum Agency Business Agency of the Year in our size category. And why I'm bringing it up is because it's a particular kind of award that goes to agencies that run themselves the best way. So it's about how we organize ourselves, how we train our people, how we make continuous learning central to what we do, how we perform as an organization from a client services standpoint, from a strategy standpoint, from a creative standpoint. And it's really how it's the award that goes to the best run agencies. And I think that you can only serve a client well if you're well run yourself. And I'm sure that's the same for your organization. And I'm sure Ajay does a great job at that. But we're particularly proud of it. And I think it's our second or third year in a row that we've done that. So it's super cool.
I love it. I love it. No, thank you for mentioning that. And Tom, talk to us about, the agency itself, Stein IAS. I would love to learn more about that. And then I want to know about your specific role. I love Chief Client Officer. That's not a title you hear all the time, but I love it. It's very refreshing. So I'd love to hear, those two questions there.
So a little bit about Stein IAS, Vincent. So Stein IAS was actually created by the merger of two agencies in 2015. So I had launched Stein in the US. I'm not even going to tell you how many years ago because it's a lot. And a successful agency, not always purely B2B, but around the year 2001, 2002, we decided to focus on B2B as really a specialism for us. And IAS, B2B marketing, was launched in the UK in 1973. So we put the two agencies together to create a global agency brand, to have global reach, because many of our clients are multinational clients, and having that kind of presence in different places was a strategic opportunity for us, and also a way to serve our clients more fully. And so Stein IAS was born at that point in time. And so we're a global B2B specialist agency. We have offices. Does anyone have offices anymore?
I'm in the office. I'm still here.
Very nice.
Yeah.
But our physical presence is in a couple of locations in the UK, New York and San Francisco here, and Shanghai, continental Europe, and Paris. So a growing, expansive, ambitious agency focused on B2B. And there are a couple of things that I think distinguish us. One is we work the brand to demand continuum. And so we'll work at the front end with clients in order to either shape or reshape their brands, positioning, messaging, brand strategy, and so on. But with always an eye on the end game. And, you and I go back to DMA, direct marketing, right? It's all about the only thing that matters is results. And so we very much have that performance aspect to what we do in terms of working with our clients so they can go to their C-suite, they can go to their board and say, the work that we're doing is making a measurable, tangible impact on business performance. So working that entire spectrum and then underpinning it with technology and with data. So marketing technology, we're, if not one of the most advanced agencies in terms of our marketing technology practice from a strategic and implementation standpoint. And then data intelligence, data-informed marketing, real-time marketing, et cetera. So these are all significant aspects of what we do. And we do it for, generally speaking, global enterprises in financial services, technology, life sciences, manufacturing, engineering, really any of the major B2B categories will have a pretty deep presence in. So I hope that gives you a little bit on us.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. And Tom, I'd love to, for you to elaborate more on your specific role with the company. Obviously, you're the chairman. You founded, Stein years ago, and I want to talk about that as well. But you know, Chief Client Officer, tell us about your kind of your day to day and what that role means.
So my role is significantly about advancing our presence in the world, and so it's being the individual at the company that helps lead the charge from a thought leadership standpoint, that collaborates with all of our discipline leads and with the agency CEO, Rob Morris, to develop strategy for the company overall, and to really build our brand and build our reputation and build our network of relationships with CMOs and senior marketing leaders at the companies that we either work with or someday may work with. The Chief Client Officer part of it is really about the fact that, through my whole career, I have worked not as a communicator per se, but of course as a communicator, but as a business strategist and as a counselor and consigliere to business leaders. And so as a Chief Client Officer, my role is where it's needed and where it's necessary and where it's appropriate, have those kinds of peer relationships and be a sounding board and be an ideator and be a co-creator and strategist with our clients. And so being able to add value into what they're doing.
And Tom, you've been doing this for almost as long as I've been alive. So.
Thanks a lot, Ajay. Appreciate that, man.
I won't name any numbers here,
Yeah,
but
thank you very much.
To go back to kind of your early days, how did you start the agency? How did you get into the space?
So the origination story is this is the only agency job that I've ever had. This is the only agency I've ever worked for, Ajay. And so when I was in my mid-20s, I was working client side as a copywriter and marketing manager. And I got this just crazy idea that I could start an ad agency, never having worked at an ad agency, and be successful. And so I quit my job. I thought I would freak out my father, but in turn, he instead embraced the notion that I was going to bring entrepreneurial spirit into our family, which is not that entrepreneurial. And so I launched an agency with a partner at the time, working out of my apartment, and I sort of backfilled to pay the rent by working at when there was such a thing as a copy shop, and running the Xerox machines for for people and doing. And I actually I like to cook, and so especially Italian food, Vincent.
Yes,
and,
me too.
And I actually ran a catering business out of my tiny little apartment in Greenwich Village in New York to pay the bills and to buy the occasional beer. Until we grew enough to sustain ourselves. So, yeah, so I started it way back then and built it over time, and it took off, pretty quickly. After a year or so of hard scrabble, we really got traction and started to grow the agency in a dynamic way, and have continued to this point in time, many years later. So yeah, it's hard to even remember back. It seems like several lifetimes ago. But
just ask Ajay; he'll remind you.
And it's I'll tell you, it's been a hell of a journey ever since. And we've gone through many gyrations. We've gone through, since we're living in one now, we've gone through many financial crises and stock market tumbles and recessions and. Nothing like this exactly, but through all of that, with persistence, resolve, and ambition, you just power through.
Great. And so, Tom, I was curious with the Mad Men reference on the website.
Yeah.
We obviously joke about that a lot internally as well when things are something funny happens. But how did you guys come to embrace that and put it on your homepage?
So, I've since we're talking about my age a lot, AJ, I definitely go back far enough in my career to kind of almost be at the tail end of the true Mad Men era, and just when it was starting to become the ad business was getting a little bit more modern and technology infused and so on. It's really the dawn of my career, but. I for sure have in the early days would sit with clients who really did do the 3 martini lunch, and I'm not sure I pulled my weight in that regard, but they sure did. So the Mad Men aspect, and so what you see on our website is Mad Men meet Martech, and it's our view at Stein IAS that that's the future of B2B marketing. So Martech has been a huge force, as you know, Martech and data and all of the tools, resources, and assets that we as B2B marketers have at our disposal these days, including the kinds of work that you do at Starista. We were a absolute early adopter, pioneer in Martech, going back to really almost the beginning of the marketing automation platforms, 2005, 6. We started investing in those, investing in learning and understanding how they can be applied. But our view is that there was such a lean into left brain marketing. There was such a lean into digital performance marketing, into marketing technology, into data, all massively important things, but such a lean into it that we a little bit lost our way in terms of understanding that Martech it's an empty container without creativity. So our view now is that as important as Martech is, we need to drive a renaissance in creativity. Mad Men, harking back to the Mad Men era of unbridled, emotionally driven creativity combined with Martech to yield results for clients. And I think that that's the path forward.
And Tom, talk to me. And we usually get to the personal stuff later, but you piqued my interest here in cooking, right? I know that we talked. I know you enjoy cooking. I didn't know it was catering, and I didn't know it was that extensive. Talk to me how that came about.
Well, I'm half Italian, so that's probably how it came about. But my mom is an awesome cook, chef. She's a chef. She's not a cook. And she never taught me, but I was always observing. And when I went off to college, the food was so miserable that I started cooking for myself and my roommates. And I just have always enjoyed it. I think that there are really only 3 things that I do well. One, I hope, is advertising and marketing. But what I actually do better than that is I'm a really good cook.
Awesome.
I used to be a really good bass player. And I'm not sure I am anymore, but those are the 3 things I do.
Oh, see, I enjoy cooking as well. And I learned very much, you see nowadays, most of the chefs, the iron chefs are male cooks, right? Where it wasn't like that. I grew up with my grandmother in a smock. I don't think I've ever seen her dressed up, maybe like when she went to church.
I hear, yeah.
She used to have a house coat, I guess they call it, right? And she'd have that on, and she would just be making like gnocchi and pasta sauce, and she would be making meatballs, and that's kind of how I learned. So I love to cook too, and very similar to you, not the catering side of it, but I started really cooking in college. We ate really well. I had one of my friends from Long Island, his parents owned a seafood shop. So I was eating orange roughy. I hadn't even heard of it before. We were cooking like that. And I used to do that for my friends. I used to do that for when I used to have dates. I would, cook for them. And it was, the good old days. And I cook now too.
I'll tell you, this is, I'm sure this is politically incorrect, but, you know, the old expression was, you know, the food, cooking, whatever is the way to a man's heart.
Yeah.
And what I actually found in college and afterwards is that it's the way to a woman's heart.
Yes.
So,
Yep.
so it worked.
I
it
found
worked
that
for
too.
me that way. Worked for me that way.
It worked
And
for me. Yes.
I made recently. You're gonna just enjoy this, but a lasagna carbonara.
Oh,
So
nice.
think about that concept. It's
yeah, that's
crazy
with
concept.
with the bechamel, right? Or similar to a bechamel, but with
Yeah.
cream and
And-
with bacon in it, or
pancetta
pancetta. Oh
and
my
eggs.
goodness,
Yeah, it's all
I
good, man.
love it. AJ, come on.
Vincent, all these years I've known you, you have never offered to cook for me. I didn't even know you cooked.
Oh, I cook all the time. You know, my wife is a very good cook too. I'm better, but I always cook like chicken scapriel. I'm cooking all these dishes
Nice.
where carbonara. But yeah, we're both good cooks, and it shocks people because people, you know, living in New York City as you did, Tom. I knew you're a native New Yorker. I could always tell that about you. But a lot of people, it's such an order out culture here because again, there's like 4,000 to 10,000 restaurant, whatever it is. So, but no, we cook. But AJ, you have to come back. You were supposed to be here.
Hey, AJ, when we're traveling again and you're in New York, even though Vincent has never invited you for a meal that he's cooked, I'm inviting you right now. You come to my house.
You beat me to it.
And I'll make you an awesome meal.
Yeah,
that
Tom
sounds
is very
great, Tom. Because
Tom lives very close to the city, so I know where he lives. I won't reveal it on the podcast.
Whenever Vincent has invited me and family to his place, it's been ordering pizza and milkshakes.
Yeah, I know, for the chill, but New York City pizza, at least. This is you don't get that pizza in San Antonio, AJ. I promise you that. But next time, you were supposed to live here over the summer. I would have cooked for you all the time. Yeah, no, definitely good. All right, let me get back to another question here. Now, I love B2B. I'm on the B2B side, but you know, we've had people before on the podcast that B2B, even B2B agencies, you know, they fell into it, right? A lot of people think B2C is sexy, but I really love B2B. Why B2B for you, Tom?
Well, you know, I think it has to do with the fact that I started my career as a writer. And I like to write all kinds of things, but I particularly like to write things that require a lot of synthesis, a lot of thinking, and that unpack complexity. And so, when you think about B2B and you think about the categories that we're in, you know, deep financial services and fintech, life sciences, things like that, they're just massively interesting areas. And I was a history major in college and et cetera. And so I just like to dig into things that have a bit of complexity and a lot of substance. And so for me, B2B just is infinitely interesting. And the more I have learned about it through the years, the more that I see that B2B is it's a driver of innovation. It's a driver of our economy. It's a driver of progress. It's a driver of all of those things. And so I find it incredibly exciting. I think we were made for each other, me and B2B.
I like it.
Well, Tom, so tell us about kind of a couple of your marquee clients right now and what you're doing for them.
So I'll talk about a couple of clients, and one is actually the B2B part of Duracell, so called ProCell, and it's a growth part of the company, and we went through a pitch process, and we're fortunate enough to win the business. And we were able to work with them to really deliver global media planning and creative and content through that planning to really help them extend out their foundation and build that part of the business. And so, again, it's this aspect of brand to demand and thinking through how best to position and message the brand in the market, how best to segment its total addressable market, how best to intersect with that total addressable market, and to begin a journey to higher levels of marketing return on investment for them. So very exciting, obviously, to be associated with a company and a brand like Duracell and ProCell. So, it's a very promising engagement. There are a couple of others that I think are really interesting. They're all really interesting, but there's a huge financial services company called IHS Markit that, again, this is what's interesting about B2B. Most people will not ever have heard of IHS Markit, but it's a multi-billion-dollar financial services software, data, and services business that really touches many aspects of really our markets, all of the markets, capital markets, private markets, and it's one of the key component parts of those markets. And we're working with them to formulate go-to-market strategy for them, where they can better connect their individual product offerings into holistic solutions that are customer-centered. And so, when we were talking before about kind of the why you like B2B. It's not easy work to do that. It's real deep tissue kind of work, but it's to me, it's fascinating. And a company like IHS Markit, just like a company like Duracell, they're so integral to so many things. They're so important in their ecosystems that it's really fantastic work. So those are a couple of examples, and just one more super quick. But we actually won this year a roster place for the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago. So just to be able to say that we work for the Fed is like so super cool. Like who works for the Fed? We're an agency that works for the Fed. It's amazing.
I hope they give you some sort of a badge so you can enter the federal buildings as well.
I don't know about that. I was hoping they would print some money for me, but that hasn't happened.
So, Tom, talk to us a little bit about what the usual agency pitch process looks like and how that's changed with COVID.
That's a big subject, AJ, and a great question. So, the pitch process, however it looked, it's not dissimilar. The same steps are involved of RFIs and RFPs and winnowing down prospective agencies into a small set of agencies that will think about the client challenge and then make live presentations to put out initial thinking, point of view, perspective, and so on. And that wins the day or doesn't. What's changed is the means of delivery. And what's changed is the fact that we have to connect with clients this way, the way that so we're doing it. We're connecting all of us on this podcast digitally and remotely and so on. And we have to find ways to make the human connection that's so important, because these are high stakes decisions that the clients are making. And we don't have quite the same opportunity to look folks in the eye and have sidebar conversations and get to know each other a little bit more intimately and personally. And so, you have to do your best to really slow down and make sure you're making the human connection and not getting lost in your own content and lost in not building those kinds of connections that, ultimately these relationships are about trust, AJ. And the client absolutely has to come to trust you, not just that you're capable, but they can trust you as a partner and that you will be a partner. And so we look for every opportunity during presentations, before presentations, as it all progresses, to make those direct and human and interpersonal connections. And it's harder to do, but you just have to work harder to do it. So that's how it's changed. The whole aspect of pitches and one of the things that is, I think, noteworthy about Stein IAS is that we're extremely disciplined. We're extremely systematic about pitches. And I think a lot of agencies take each pitch as a unique thing that has never happened before and will never happen again. And we don't do that. We believe that our process to get to a pitch needs to be consistent and uniform, and it lets us scale our business better that way. And so I think that we bring original thinking to every pitch for sure, but our discipline around the pitch process is extraordinary, from first contact all the way through winning the business. And if there are other agency leaders here, I shouldn't be giving you a competitive tip, but that's the tip. The more systematic, the more consistent, the more you build in every touch point in the process, the greater likelihood that you'll be in winning territory at the end. And again, it's one of the things that in particular, my business partner, our CEO, Rob Morris, has really been adamant about, and it's been a great advantage for us.
Oh, we appreciate that, and our listeners appreciate the advice there as well. We're talking with Tom Stein from Stein IAS, Industrial Art Services, just in case you were wondering what that meant. Tom, you mentioned before the approach you take specifically with data. So I'd love to understand, we always love hearing this because we're a data company, but what's the importance that your company puts on data, and how are you utilizing it?
Another really good question, and I'm going to speak about this probably with not quite the same depth that our chief innovation officer would speak about it, who lives in a world of data and the kinds of connections that we need to make with customers. But there are a couple of ways that I would describe it. One is to have to work with our clients to get control of first, second, and third party data. And what we run into time and time again is that clients' data and their data strategies are not what they want them to be. It's a consistent issue and challenge in B2B, and especially the larger the enterprise, the more complex that gets, as you know. And so working with them to develop a data strategy that leverages all available data sources and that we can take advantage of, and using that data to inform our go-to-market approaches, and whether that's through programmatic, whether it's through multi-channel, omni-channel marketing, whether it's through uploading data sets into social platforms so that we can reach audiences that way. It's really about any client that has a handle on its total addressable market and has a data relationship with its total addressable market, or a significant percentage of it, has a massive competitive advantage. And it drives down the cost of marketing. It drives up the performance of marketing. And so that's something that we focus on. Second area that I'll hit is, there's so much data out there, as you know very, very well, and using the data tools that are available to us. And we have a data platform that ingests insights, ingests signals from all the places those signals exist, and using that to understand the optimal strategy. So, in a lot of cases, agencies will develop strategy through qualitative research and quantitative research and desk research and things of that nature. And we do all of that as well, but also looking at data in real time in terms of sentiment, share of voice, conversations, and so on, that give us a real-time edge to how we develop strategy. And that same data tool, informs our go-to-market approaches in terms of what level of investment, what we need to do to intersect with our market. So the data is, it runs through everything that we do.
And Because there's a lot of people who are in the marketing space that are listening to the podcast, Tom, you touched upon some of the technology, whether it's internal. I would love to hear more about that, but also some of your technology stack. Are there companies out there and products or solutions that Stein IAS is using that may benefit other people out there?
There are, it's not so much about the companies or the platforms, and we certainly have our favorites, I don't know that I want to get into what those are exactly, but we work with clients across their tech stacks, and so we need to be, on the one hand, agnostic, because clients will have their own preferences, whether they're an Oracle Marketing Cloud user, SFDC, Adobe, whatever it may be. So, but it's really around how they should strategically construct their stacks. So whether it's marketing automation, intent platforms, ABM platforms, CDPs, CRM, the conversational platforms that are out there now significantly, and understanding what the right configuration of tool sets are for a given client, but to do it strategically. And one of the things that again we see is that a lot of the tech stacks are built one solution, one application at a time. With, it's not that there's not prior thought, but that as they evolve, the integration issues are compounded, and the ability to utilize the tech stack fully to realize the potential, and so sometimes there's a need to rethink that a little bit strategically, but all of the major technologies we're deeply versed in. If that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you.
Tom, I liked how you answered it. Don't want to play favorites on a podcast.
Yeah, I'll tell you, Ajay. There's one of the things that I'm proud of right now is that we're working in partnership with a media entity called The Drum, which I'm sure you know, and sure. We're putting on together an event next week called B2B Worldfest, and we helped to originate the event, and we helped to bring together a pretty remarkable array of speakers and sessions. And the reason I'm bringing it up is that one of them is one that I actually facilitated, or will facilitate the conversation. Is the MarTech arms race over, or has it only just begun? And so we have Scott Brinker from Chief MarTech, who's the gentleman behind the MarTech Superscape that comes out every year. And we've got John Miller, the Chief Product Officer for Demandbase, who actually was a co-founder of Marketo. So this is a topic that's so interesting, and if you get a chance, tune in, because those gentlemen, along with Jillian Ryan from eMarketer, are much smarter than I am about this stuff, and it's a terrific conversation.
Absolutely. So Tom, you've had a great career, a lot of great brands, but is there kind of a moment that stood out to you where you really thought that your agency had made it, or it was kind of a breakthrough campaign for you guys?
Well, yeah, there are a couple of points in time, and there's one in particular. Well, it's a great question. There are a number in particular, but there's one in particular that stands out for me, and so. We were a mid-sized B2B agency in the U.S. We grew into a mid-sized B2B agency in the U.S. And we started to compete with everyone. And we would run into Ogilvy, and we would run into McCann, and just the big networks and so on. And it's little Stein IAS, or little at the time Stein. And in 2010. We were named the B2B Agency of the Year by ANA for the first time. And it was sort of this particular moment. It was in Chicago, and did not know we were going to win. And I'm sitting in the audience with all the other prospective winners at the awards competition. And I was actually, I was on the phone with my wife, and our kids were little at the time. And they announced that we won. And I just went up on stage to take this award, which was like the culmination at that point in time of everything that we had worked for. And I was still on the phone with my wife and the kids. And as the audience was applauding for us, I had my phone so they could hear it in real time. And it was such a moment for our family, and for me personally, and for the agency at the time. I would point to that one. And then the next year, this agency called IAS, UK-based agency, won and took it away from us. And that's when I and Rob Morris met each other through that. And within a couple of years, we had merged the two companies and started on our winning streak, Vincent, of winning Agency of the Year a number of years in a row.
I love hearing that. And then Tom, that's kind of to my question. It's, I haven't met, an agency that has won so many awards for all the great work that you've done. What's, you've been given great tidbits of advice here. What's some advice out there of, maybe that agency of a couple people who just got out of college and are starting up, an agency? What would be your advice?
So my advice is to do what you would do for any kind of company, startup, any kind of brand, is that, if your offering isn't distinctive, if you don't have a distinctive positioning for your offering, because you're creative, because whatever, it's not enough. It's not enough to break through. This is a very highly competitive, highly populated world, the agency world, and then I would say this for any company, anytime, but agencies do a terrible job of positioning themselves, and we may do a good job of positioning clients, but in a lot of cases, agencies, they don't do that same level of work to start a conversation with a prospective client that's relevant to them and ties back to your offering. And we've always focused on that, Vincent, and it's been a key to our success. I'll give you a specific example, but in 1992, we unlocked we had done well, but at that point in time, we unlocked true success by positioning ourselves as the information agency. And so, if you think back at that point in time, the information industries was a big deal. So that was IT, technology. It was infotainment. It was everything having to do with the way that the information agencies, driven by advancing technology, were changing the world. And it put us straight in the path of the internet tsunami that then occurred, the .com run up, and we were off to the races based on that. We quadrupled the size of the agency in a couple of years on the back of it. And AJ was asking me about Mad Men and MarTech. It's that same kind of positioning. You know exactly what we stand for as a company, and our offering supports that in a very rich, substantive way. And that's the key. It's not just being another. It's being relevantly distinctive.
And yeah, thank you for that advice. And then I have one more question, more personal to me and AJ as well. And then we'll get into our signature question that we ask all of our guests. AJ will do the honor there. But Tom, now
I'm nervous.
You should be very nervous. Yeah,
a signature question from AJ.
It is a signature question. Either AJ or I get to ask. It all depends on the flow of the conversation. But it's the Marketing Stir signature question.
Nice.
He'll get to. It's a doozy, and people love hearing it. They actually respond to us and tell us, "Thank you for that." But I see you speaking at so many different events. I love hearing you speak. This is kind of what prompted this conversation here. As AJ and I start to speak at a variety of different conferences, how do you prepare for that? Different topics. What's some advice that you could give AJ and I in regards to that?
Wasn't expecting that.
Look at that. I said people think they get me, and then I throw a curveball at them, Tom.
It's you've never seen me try to hit curveballs. It's not a pretty sight. Yeah, the one thing is I am intensely interested in the currents of the industry, and I investigate them continuously, and I have the benefit of being able to have conversations with really, really bright marketers and agency peers and so on, to really have a sense of what's on people's minds and what are the things that they're trying to solve. And I think, by knowing that, you're able to I think, craft the kind of presentations that will resonate. And then, what you need to bring to them then, I think, is a point of view, a really particular point of view. And people don't want to hear the same things that they hear all the time. That's not why they're listening to anybody ever. And so I think the more, and you're not doing it to be sensational. You're doing it to be helpful. You're do it to be provocative, positively provocative. And I think that looking for the ways to provoke people to think about their challenges and to understand that you're thinking about them, and then be you, and be as personal. I mean, I sense from each of you, you don't have any trouble doing that at all. But I think it's finding ways to do that. Be personable, be empathetic, let your emotions out, let the people respond to that, and so to have a conversation with 1,000 people, but like you're having it with one person, is I think how it's at least how I think about it, and then I prepare a lot. I prepare an awful lot for these things, but not to be rigid either. And to let it flow. And but it's sort of like the ex-bass player in me who loved to be on stage. I like to be on stage. I don't get to play in second-rate rock bands anymore, but I still get to be on stage.
Yeah, I know. I love it.
Vincent made a Facebook post, and actually I saw it on LinkedIn as well, talking about him missing the stage and a picture of him on the stage. So I think he's right there with you.
that was 2014 DMA, where I got to be the MC, San Diego.
That's great.
Magic Johnson, got to hang in the green room with him for like an hour and a half. It's
and
awesome.
He doesn't name drop at all.
Yeah. I was going to pick that name up, that I dropped there.
Now it's he name drops you, AJ. He'll name drop me and Magic.
Yeah. Exactly.
We're all
just
there.
bragging. I'm just bragging. That's all I'm doing. And
Yeah,
now
totally.
the signature question, ladies and gentlemen.
Tom.
Okay.
So this is a good one. It's two-part. I'll ask the first part. I'm sure with what your position is and your agency's reputation, you get a lot of junk messages and LinkedIn messages to your LinkedIn and email. What's kind of the one or two pet peeves? Some people have up to 5 that you have when people are reaching out to you that really annoys you.
I'm going to answer that in a slightly unconventional way. I believe that one of the keys to business success is a philosophy of what goes around comes around, and I contribute a lot to industry associations. I contribute a lot to individuals who I can be of assistance to, and there are plenty of those. I get 10 of them a day or 20 of them a day, and and where I can be helpful, I'll actually try and be a little bit helpful to people and direct them to one thing or another, because that's how people help me in my career. And I think that doing that is so I get less annoyed than some people do about that kind of outreach. And you know, we all sell stuff all the time. I mean, we're all selling ourselves, our companies, our services all the time. And I respect that. You know, I was at a point in time, I was when I launched the agency, I was cold calling. I was cold writing, mailing, and I remember one instance where I actually got through to the CEO of a publishing company, and I thought, this is cool. You know, I actually got through, and he just ripped me a new one because I had misspelled his name in my letter, and the two things I learned from that was don't misspell someone's name in a letter, and the second is there are a lot of assholes out there, and don't be one. And so I've always tried not to be one. But you know, I think that I will give you a peeve though, just because I do have them. You know, it's the people that connect or try to connect on a premise, and then they reveal themselves after if you do accept, they have an agenda, and they're on you within minutes. And I think it's just stupid and terrible and annoying, and I do hate that. So just to be clear, there are things that totally annoy me. And you know, the other is the obligatory, hey, if I could help you in any way at this time of COVID, let's have a chat. Like, why? What are you gonna do for me, man?
Yeah,
like
you don't know me.
Be clever, be subtle. Don't be that. So those are two.
Yeah, it's kind of very similar philosophy that I have. I'm nice, you know, sometimes overly nice, but then I don't like when I accept and poof, right then and there. But this has been awesome. Our new friend, Tom Stein, ladies and gentlemen, my New York brother here. I love it. Tom, this has been great. We enjoyed having you. Keep up the amazing work that you're doing and that Stein IAS is doing. That is Tom Stein of Stein IAS, the chairman and chief client officer. I am Vincent Petrofessa. That is Ajay Gupta. This has been another episode of The Marketing Stir. Thank you so much and have a great day.
Thanks for listening to the Marketing Stir podcast by Stirista. Please like, rate, and subscribe. If you're interested in being a guest on the podcast, email us at themarketingstir@stirista.com. And thanks for listening.